This is the Unstarving Musicians Podcast. The podcast features conversation for musicians of all types and genres, a curation of expertise intended to help all musicians be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love, make music. This episode is powered by the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs, How to Get Booked and Paid What You're Worth Over and Over Again, written by Roberto R. Hernandez. That's me, yours truly. Learn more about the book at unstarvingmusician.com/book and on Amazon. This episode of the Unstarving Musicians Podcast features my conversation with performing singer, songwriter, composer for film and TV, and creator of Licensing Song Academy, Michelle Lockey. Michelle is a 3-time Washington Area Music Award nominee and grand prize winner in the folk category of the 2013 John Lennon Song Contest. My interest in connecting with Michelle was to learn more about her as a music licensing business educator. As usual for the podcast, however, we also talk about her music influences, education, musicianship, and other stuff that I was curious to know about her. As a solo artist, she devotes much of her craft to writing for film and TV, which does have an influence on her writing style. She holds an MS degree in molecular biology from Johns Hopkins University and has a widespread music education consisting of college courses and private instruction. When asked how she got into educating others on the business of music licensing, she reflected on her prior career in biotech and a time that she created an online platform for product users. You can guess where the story goes. One thing worth underscoring here is how timing played into the creation of her current online licensing academy. The timing of accessible technology. Timing is everything, but so is seizing the moment. That's what Michelle is doing. Please enjoy my conversation with Michelle Lockey. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking time out of your day. You are near Washington, D.C.?
Yes, I'm up in Maryland, so about 20 miles outside the district.
I noticed that we are mutually connected to Bree Noble. Are you acquainted with her outside of the Facebook?
Yeah, so I met her through submitting music to Women of Substance Radio. And so we're collaborators on the music licensing stuff that I do, the courses. So she's kind of helps me market stuff, and we're friends and part of the community. So, yep, I do kind of know her outside of that whole arena of Facebook.
Okay. I bring it up because you may know she was a recent guest in her episode.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I was just curious how most of my guests, not all of them, but most of them I'm just meeting kind of like you did. I happened to see that you were doing some work in the area of education for music licensing, which I'm hoping to get into today. So yeah, I found you there and here we are. Before we get into the educational work that you're doing, I wanted to ask you about your educational background. It looks kind of interesting. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about it?
Sure. I have a degree in biology and a master's in biotechnology. Totally not music related, but I did do some piano and stuff like that when I was younger and some songwriting, but never pursued it because I thought it wasn't something that you could really follow it. I didn't really believe that I was able to do it. So even though it's something I wanted to do. So anyway, my second love was kind of biology and biotech. So I went through that, and it was about 2013 when I got laid off from that industry, which I really wanted at the time because I was just done. And by then I had started the whole musical journey with choirs and then singing on like my church worship team. And then I relearned kind of the keyboard and piano, learned guitar and learned ukulele and started songwriting and starting to see this as something I could really do as a business, especially the licensing part of it. So that's where I am now. It's kind of like all self-taught, learning through workshops and conferences and taking lessons and all that kind of stuff. So I've kind of completely transitioned from the previous world, I guess you could say.
How long were you in the biotech and biology space?
20 years almost, I think.
Okay. My wife has worked in medical devices for many, many years. She's on sabbatical now with me, but she has been a QA director for many years, so I took note of your education, grabbed my eye. So you also did a little bit of songwriting education, is that right?
It's not like formally, I've done the workshops and I've kind of worked with people individually here and there on teaching about writing, and music licensing is really what I started to teach because people started to ask me a lot of questions like, how I was getting my music license and that kind of thing. So not 100% on the songwriting part, just kind of how to write your songs for film and TV. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, yeah.
Totally does. And then as far as your music training, you mentioned self-taught. Is any of that formal at all, either from childhood or in the background of your college years?
When I was young, I took classical piano. Never really learned like chords or arrangements and all that. And then I didn't really study anything formally in college, or I didn't even take any elective courses in it, which is bizarre. I mean, I was in musical theater in high school for a bit, just a couple things. I sang the lead as Daisy May in Little Abner, and that was kind of the extent of it. And even though it was something that was still kind of in my heart is what I wanted to do, I was like completely scared to do it. And then one day I just decided to get up and try to sing a song karaoke. I had to really psych myself up for it. It was like the most nerve-wracking thing. And in the end, nobody could hear me because the bar area, it was like so loud, nobody could hear me anyway. So I was like, I'm psyching myself out. I'm sweating. I'm having a few beers. And it's like I get up there and sing Hotel California. It was like always my go-to song at the time. And, well, we couldn't hear you because the bar was too loud. So I kept doing that, just kind of learning songs and just to get the performance. And then I started taking singing lessons from a lady I met locally. Like I took a class through a local college, like they have the evening kind of extracurricular stuff that anybody can take. And then I started taking private lessons with her. And that was in the early 2000s. And then got on the choir through my church. That really kind of helped a lot vocally because I had a fear of high notes. I thought I couldn't sing because I couldn't sing like Olivia Newton-John, for instance, who I liked when I was a kid. So I'm dating myself, but whatever. So she kind of helped me learn. Had no idea there was this whole training thing you could do with your voice and your diaphragm and your breathing to support your voice and get the notes and everything that you wanted. So it was kind of an eye-opener for me. And then I think around 2006-07, I started taking keyboard lessons again privately. But this time we focused on chords and chord progressions and kind of stuff I didn't learn when I was a kid because it was all classical music. And note reading, which is really helping me now because now I can teach others that stuff and I know a lot more about music. That was 2006, 2007. And then through my church, I met someone who worked with a producer in Baltimore. And I really wanted to start. I was experimenting with songwriting and I really wanted to try to write kind of my first professional song. So I went up and met with him, and he was really great guy. Song Builder Studios up in Baltimore. His name is Stephen Joseph Antonelli, and we became friends, and he co-wrote with me and kind of coached me through singing and the recording process, and we put out an album like 2008 and 2009. And by that time, I just started taking workshops on how to write music as an artist, how to write country music. I went to Nashville and some workshops, and I joined Taxi Music first as an artist, and I went to their convention for a couple years learning about the artist side of it. And then all of a sudden, this whole film and TV thing like opened up. Like I had no idea that was an avenue for your music, but it was a whole different way of writing. And so I started to learn and teach myself about that through them. I met people that were doing this successfully. I decided to learn ukulele and then guitar. And that was around 2011. And worked with people that were getting their music licensed. They kind of helped me see and produce. They would produce stuff for me that I would write. And it's kind of all self-taught, but in an atmosphere that was very nurturing and very helpful with that. So no formal degree or education as far as music goes. It just was a lot now that I think about it all that I did myself. I'm just like, wow, whoa, wait a minute.
I happened to notice in doing a little homework on you that you had done some education, and I don't know to what extent, but did any of what you mentioned come out of songu.com or songu?
Oh, right. Yeah. I did get on songu for some of the stuff there. I can't remember if it was, I don't think it was film and TV based, but I think it was kind of a regular songwriting. So I did take some of their courses. They were pretty helpful. I haven't been on there for a while. Thanks for reminding me. I forgot about that. But yeah.
What was your inspiration to get into music in the first place, and when did that happen?
My family on my dad's side, and they live in Ohio, kind of just outside of West Virginia, was always musical. And I think I tried to write my first song when I was like 6 or 7. It was just, music was kind of always there. My immediate family, like we had moved to Washington, D.C. very early on, wasn't as musical. And my dad played some piano, and I do remember him playing some guitar when I was younger, and I always liked that. And I just think it was always there. It was always something that I wanted to do. Every time we went back to Ohio to visit my relatives, my cousins and I would play around the piano and sing songs. And my cousins they're one of those prodigies. Like, they wake up and they can just play the piano and chords and know everything. It's just weird. I wasn't quite like that. I kind of had to learn at it more. So I remember writing a couple songs when I was pretty young. They're pretty bad. And then trying to sing them, like, for my mom. I think I just felt really embarrassed because they were just kind of dumb. I didn't have a whole lot of self-esteem when I was younger either, but that's kind of when I first started. And then I would write stories and poems and that kind of thing. And the only musical exposure I really had was when I went back to Ohio or when we started kind of the formal piano lessons, and then theater in high school kind of thing. But it was always there.
Who was your first, or was there someone in your life that you listened to on radio or maybe records at home with the family that kind of sparked your interest? Or
there was that whole era of, they had the musical movies that were out. So there was Olivia Newton-John. I really remember liking Juice Newton at the time, Dolly Parton. I'm trying to remember the name of them. It was a mother and two sisters that had this TV show where they would sing country music a lot on TV, and we would watch that. I can see them in my head, but I can't remember their name. It'll probably pop in my head as soon as they're done or something. I would watch that. Any shows that came on that had anything musical, the Partridge Family. My dad used to listen to the Beatles, so my sister and I would listen to the Beatles and the Partridge Family records, and they came out. We were like all like excited about that. So I don't know. I just remember Olivia Newton-John was a big influence on me when I was younger, and her movies. So she sings so high. I'm like, I can't sing like her. I must not be able to sing, even though I would try in my room with all the records.
It's maddening, isn't it?
Yes. Somebody would just told me that I didn't have to sing like her. I could sing like me. Then maybe I would have started earlier in life. I don't know.
So I'm a drummer and have been a lifelong drummer and singer as well, but been singing more seriously in the latter part of my life. But forever in my life, I've always wanted to be able to sing Led Zeppelin songs, but it's just not quite in my range.
Yeah, right.
Despite my efforts to stretch my range. Well, that's cool. Okay, let's talk about how you got interested in licensing. Did it happen in school, or was there something else that occurred?
No, because I went to school for biology and biotech, so I had no idea about that world. So the whole film and TV licensing thing started coming around when I got involved with Taxi Music.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about Taxi Music. I'm sorry, I meant to back up to that. What is it?
There's a little bit of controversy with this model, but they're an A&R company where you join. It's like $2.99 the first year, and then you can do like a 2-for-1 for like $1.99 after that, where they publish what we call listings or searches. So they partner with music supervisors and publishers and independent agents and record labels and other companies to say, hey, we're looking for this type of music for this show or this artist or whatever. So then we as members can create music for those listings and then submit that music. So the music then goes through a screening process because they want to make sure that the right music is getting to the end party, because you don't want like 1,000 songs that don't fit going, because people will submit anything. I did when I first started. I have a song here, it's got to work. But more than just that, your membership gets you a free ticket to their yearly conference. So they have a yearly conference in LA. It is eye-opening. They have so many classes you can take. They have listening panels. There's industry professionals there. You meet like-minded people that are doing this for a living, and the community surrounding it is just phenomenal. Just a lot of support and education. I wouldn't be, I think, where I am today without that. I was doing some stuff on my own, but it wasn't going to different conferences, but there was no like huge community like this. And so probably about the third year I went is when I started learning about film and TV. They have a free forum that you can join. And I think I met some people through the forum. Like I would post songs. They have like, you can do peer-to-peer review. You can do collaborations. It's a really great forum, and you can find it. It's on their website. You can find it to join. So then I met those people in person at the rally. And that's when our collaboration started to happen. And when I started to realize, and I started taking classes that were focused on writing music for film and TV, I was just like, wow, maybe this is something that I can do. And I really knew that I wanted to take my life in a different direction. I knew that this music thing is what I wanted to do. Not 100% the performance piece, like the live gigging, but I wanted to make music for something and make a living at it. And these people were doing that. And film and TV, they use all kinds of music and all kinds of opportunities. And so I just started going in that direction. So I kind of owe a lot of that to them and learning about them. So
what does Taxi stand for? Do you know? Or how did they get that name?
it's just taximusic.com. I actually don't know the history of why they chose that name, but on their website, there's a picture of a taxi. And every year at the conference, they bring this old school taxi outside of the hotel, and everybody, you have to get a picture in front of it.
What a fantastic URL they got.
Yeah, because if you search like taxi music, you get, or taxi companies coming up. So you have to search taxi music. It's actually taximusic.com. Mm-hmm. But it's just been eye-opening and wonderful, the community that is built around that whole system, and just eye-opening.
And then what got you interested in educating others in this and some of the other things that you've touched on, and what else are you educating on?
So I seriously started writing for film and TV in like 2012 and started to get some placements. So a couple years ago, people in the area would start asking me questions, or I'd get contacted on Facebook, or people wanted to meet in person and talk about the whole licensing and what was it and how you would do it. And in addition to my background in biology and biotech, when I went into the biotech industry, my last job that I was with for like 13 some years, I was with customer support. And we would keep getting these phone calls like over and over, same questions over and over about the data or the chemistry they're using or something. And I just started thinking to myself, why don't we have an educational system to teach people ahead of time so they don't call with these same questions? And I've always had a knack for like breaking things down and explaining them. So I designed and developed the training department there. And we created first classes for employees, like we kind of did a test run with them, and then classes for customers. And then I learned about the whole online training thing was starting to come into fruition around that time too, like webinars and all that. There was new stuff. So I kind of educated myself with that, took some classes, and created this whole online program for this company. So back to the licensing part of it. So people were asking me all these questions, and I'm like, maybe I should just hold a workshop. So I partnered with my buddy up in Song Builder Studios in Baltimore, and we held a workshop at his studio. And it was small, but we had about 15 people, which is enough. I had been blogging before this on licensing music. I just started to share with people what I knew on my blog. Mm-hmm. So I took that content and I made it into kind of an 8-hour workshop where people also kind of use the knowledge to write a song during like the lunch break. And it was pretty successful. So then I held another one at a local community college, which went well as also. And then I held one for the local songwriting group. All this time I knew Bree, and we'd been kind of talking back and forth. And I just remember thinking that, I could get a wider audience if I can develop an online program for this. Right? I mean, just than the local, it's like other people from other countries and around the country were asking me questions through Facebook. And
sure.
There was a need there, and I already knew how to develop online programs. I'm like, why can't I use that education to teach others? And around that time, these platforms are coming up for online training development. I use Zoom.us, which is a webinar program, which is cool. And I use Teachable to host the courses, so you can kind of post them and put your materials and education. People can pay through there. And I just developed this 9-week session. I got some guest speakers on, which were some were my publishers, some were supervisors I've met at conferences. I just reached out and asked people if they'd like to be guests. A couple of my friends taught some of the sessions, like on recording and instrumentals. And with Bree, she knew so much about the marketing aspect of things. She did all the marketing, the selling part of it. And we launched in, I think, early 2015 was the first online program I did. And we got, I think it was about 23 people. And I opened a private Facebook group as well for the group. And it was great. I met so many people that are now my friends that I've also collaborated with and keep building this community every year of people that come on board. And I just really enjoyed the education process, the talking to other people. Because, if you're sitting in your studio doing this by yourself day after day, you just feel like you're in a hole, right? It's like you don't realize the struggles and things that other people are dealing with. So through these classes, not only am I educating, I'm kind of helping them motivationally. I'm helping them to focus their music business, and I'm helping myself too, because it's something that my soul needs. I've been told, and now I know that I've got this leadership ability, which is weird for me to think about it that way, but other people are telling me this, so I'm trying to pursue it. And this is our 4th launch, I think, of this course now, and it's just been great, and the community and support that everybody shares. So that's kind of the short, long answer, long, short answer.
That's very interesting. Now, let me zigzag off of that for a moment.
Sure.
I noticed that you've done some house concerts, or at least one. Are you still doing them?
I wanted to get into some of the local house concerts, and the one I did, we meant to get good video, and I actually had my phone set up because, the phone's cameras are pretty good now. Mm-hmm. Well, it recorded me, but not the sound. So I don't know why, but a lot of the places around the area, they want some really good video of,
Sure.
You doing house concerts and stuff. So I haven't pursued it, but I want to set up another one with some people I know in Virginia, kind of get a new audience there. Because that's kind of what I prefer, is like an attentive audience. They want to hear your stories. They want to hear your music. You're not just playing in a bar where nobody cares kind of thing, or you're not music in the background, which if I get paid well, I don't mind doing music in the background and that kind of stuff. And I need to listen to some of your stuff, because that's one of the reasons I don't perform out live as much, because it's so much work for little pay, and people will take the lesser amount of pay, and that kind of hurts those of us who want to be paid what we're worth. So the places that I approach now, and it depends on the atmosphere and kind of what's going on too. This is typically what I do for a 2 or 3 hour set. And if I have to travel a certain amount, then there's this, because, you have to drag your equipment and you have to constantly practice the songs and covers and originals. I'm more of an original artist, but I do a mix and I do a blend. And that's why I prefer the house concerts, because they're much more intimate. It's a better gathering. So I do want to do more of those. I just haven't had the time to pursue it as much as I wanted to. So
sure. And when you say they, are you marketing yourself to an organization or community that puts bands out for house concert opportunities?
Yeah, there's a couple local ones, and then there's one nationally too that I was going to look into.
Okay.
Concerts in Your Home, maybe, is the one I'm thinking of. But there are a couple local ones that do ones in the area, and they want to see like auditions and videos. So I'm still kind of gathering that stuff.
I was going to mention, yes, video has surprisingly suddenly, I say surprisingly suddenly because I'm surprised to have not heard it for a longer period of time already, but video's definitely becoming the new demo material requirement. And something I learned fairly recently through a vlogger, Amy Schmidhauer. She's not the only one who knows about this fact, but the mic on your phone, yeah. If you're not close to it, it's not going to pick much up.
Right.
And they are amazing, the cameras on our phones, for doing, anything from a talking head type of video to performing like you were. You're going to have some limitations with miking, but
yeah.
But otherwise, camera-wise, pretty darn good from a distance.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you found in your experience that you mentioned stories, so the reason I'm asking this question is related to that mention of stories, but do you find that the hosts and audiences in these venues are looking for that, or does it kind of depend on what you're presenting?
I think it depends on what you're presenting to. From what I've known about house concerts, you have to have like some kind of conversation with the audience, especially if it's a house concert where you're pretty darn close, right? And the ones that seem to be more profitable of those types of shows are where you've got kind of stories behind things and how you created the song. And it's kind of odd for me because I do write a lot for film and TV, and I kind of pick and choose the songs that I write for film and TV to perform as an original artist. And usually there are stories behind all of my songs, but some of them are prompted by like the listings and the searches that I see as well. And then I kind of just have to, pull out of me what I'm feeling about that. And those kind of can turn into my stories. But I don't tell like convoluted stories, but it's just like somebody was sick or something like this, and I just really wanted to create this song, those kinds of things. Or I saw this thing for film and TV, and I decided to write this heartbreaking story about it. And I kind of pulled this emotion that I was feeling at that time to create this story. They're not all sad, but I I write a lot of sad, depressing music too, because that's what some of my publishers like. But there are happy stuff too. So you've got to make a blend. But the more you can make it a show, not just you're sitting there playing music, the more the audience will respond. Mm-hmm. And we did a kind of a donation-based thing where we had a suggested donation. Like instead of, some of them will charge like up front depending on the place or the house that you go to. We decided, since this kind of was my first one, that we would do a suggested donation. You know, at the end of the show, the host kind of, I kind of thanked people for coming and went into the kitchen where the food and the merchandise table was set up and all that. And she kind of gave a little speech like, thank you for coming. And, Michelle's worked really hard in this. So, just give what you feel the show was worth and blah, blah, blah. And then she left the room. So you kind of let the audience put stuff in the bucket or whatever. And then you can converse with them afterwards at the table. And we had everybody, it was like a potluck thing. So people brought food and it was cool. It was fun. It was a fun night and worth the amount that we got from it and stuff. So that's why I'd like to pursue those more, because I think they're a little bit more lucrative than weekly shows, unless you can get really good pay on like your weekly shows. Like festivals pay great. I'm looking at doing more of those too.
You mentioned pay, which is near and dear to my heart. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned my stuff. Most of what I have done in recent years has been playing in cover bands, but I've had some foray into original music too, but never, those have never been money-making gigs for me. But I'm totally with you on some people going out and playing for next to nothing, if not nothing, and creating a challenge. And interestingly, I've heard, and I'm sure you would probably echo this, it dawned on me as true. I hadn't really thought about it, but someone in the last couple of years, maybe 3 years, had told me that we are basically playing in clubs for the same money we were playing for decades ago. It hasn't gone up much. Yeah. But anyway, I think that now there are some friends and people I know who are out playing and doing well. But certainly there's kind of a jump in caliber of bands or performance. Speaking of bands, do you have a band?
I am solo, and then I have a duo group called Michelle, and we perform occasionally. So it's like the two of us, and sometimes we'll bring in percussion. But I'm doing some more solo stuff now, solo with a percussionist, just plays on djembe or something. I did the full band thing for a little bit early on, but it just became too complicated with practices and then trying to book gigs that would pay enough so that it was worth everybody's time. And so we just kind of let that go. It's too much. And honestly, it's like I really enjoy just being in my studio and making and recording music. Yeah. More than I enjoy playing out. So
sure.
And it's starting to pay off with the royalty stream and all that kind of stuff from film and TV. So
oh, good. Do you have a genre that you associate yourself with, or have you had to be a multi-genre artist because of the type of work that you're drawn toward?
I started to kind of go all over the place at first. I've got kind of two specialty genres. Indie folk is one, like a la Lumineers, Monsters and Men, that kind of thing. And then I do kind of indie alternative rock and psychedelic rock. So the bands are kind of like the XX, Daughter, Warpaint. There's a lot of verb, there's a lot of darkness to it. One of my publishers absolutely loves that stuff. And I love doing it. It's really cool kind of style of music. And then there's been some requests for 60s style psychedelic rock. Who did the White Rabbit song?
Jefferson Airplane.
Thank you. I'm losing my mind. So that style stuff, which I found I'm pretty good at vocally. And then, I usually work with co-writers that produce too, because at that level of production, I'm not there with that yet. And that's fun too. So those are kind of the main styles that I do. And then if the need arises, I can do the happy singer-songwriter, bouncy kind of stuff. But I like the darker stuff.
Sure. What I've heard so far anyway has been an indie folk style. Yeah. But given the influences that we had talked about so far during our conversation here, I was not sure what your response would be. But anyway, yeah, that's cool. Now I have to dive more into your music. It's kind of my kind of thing. So what music still moves you these days, or moves you the most in terms of what you listen to?
It's kind of bizarre because lately I've been just turning the radio off because I'm so inundated with music every day. I'm like, what? I just need a break. I like a lot of the current indie folk stuff that's going on. And it's funny, I don't always know the name of the band. So I'll be in the car and I'll hear something, I'll just Shazam it. And my Shazam has this huge playlist. Since we're on my phone, I don't know if I can look at it now, but I could name off some of the bands. But I'm kind of any of the bands that are in the style of the alternative indie folk stuff that's on, what's the college stations,
Mm-hmm.
the XM, that kind of music is a lot of what I listen to. And then I also listen to the acoustic channel on Sirius, so the Coffee House.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of cool stuff that they do on that channel that's kind of just broken down, and it's still kind of indie on there as well, a lot of it. And I listen a lot to see what I could probably produce myself too. So if I hear an artist, Vanessa Carlton, I think there's stuff I'll hear and I'll be like, I could so produce that. And I'll put it on my Shazam list and I'll go listen, and because that's my style as well, but it just gives me ideas. And it's definitely changed my listening experience, let's put it that way. Because now I always listen in terms of film and TV. Oh, that would be good for film and TV. Oh, this would be good for film and TV. Not that it's ruined it, it's just changed it.
When you say I could produce that, or this would be good for film and TV, you think in terms of stylistic and creating something stylistically similar yourself?
Yeah, because some people like kind of my more acoustic based stuff. So I listen to kind of see what's kind of currently being played, and, just making sure that, can I do a similar sound and style? Is this me? Because you never want to like rip somebody off, but it's always as soon as you start writing yourself, then your own style kind of influences that. And then it just lets me be able to know that, that is a really simple guitar strum. I can do that. Because I'm not a very convoluted player. I don't do leads. I do more rhythm stuff and simple things. And so when I hear that there's a song on the radio that's pretty simple, I'm like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah. You record at home, yes?
I do some recording at home. I don't do like the more massively produced stuff that you will hear on SoundCloud, but I do like acoustic based recording. Mm-hmm.
Anything that you release to the public, or is it all demo that you take somewhere else? Or
a lot of stuff is posted on SoundCloud, and I have a few things that have been formally released through iTunes. And I'm currently working on an acoustic based self-written, self-recorded album that will hopefully be next year. I've already got 2 songs done that are sort of out, and they're actually being pitched right now too, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So yes and no. I don't release everything, but I release a lot of stuff.
Tell me about your home studio setup. What are you using?
And I actually have a video on YouTube, like how to make a simple studio out of a bedroom, because that's what I had to work with. I had an upstairs bedroom. I didn't have, a lot of cash startup. Now I did win a couple contests that got me most of my equipment. One was through Broad Jam and one was through the John Lennon Song Contest. I won some monitors. So I have Genelec monitors, and I bought stands to go with them. A couple desks that I got from like Target. I have a basic iMac computer. It's hooked up to a very simple interface. It's a Steinberg C1 interface, which it's going to need to be replaced because it's starting to buzz and do stuff. And I have 7-year-old, I bought a keyboard from a pawn shop 7 years ago. I don't know how old it's been before then, but it's a Roland RS-70 and it's MIDI. So I just plug that right into my computer, and I have Logic. And that's about it. I have some sound treatment, not anything real crazy, just enough to kind of dampen the room. Mm-hmm. And then my guitar, my ukulele, and my banjo uke, and some percussion kind of shakers and stuff. And that's it. Simple.
Yeah. And when you say you have a YouTube video on it, is that on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel. I just did a really simple, how to make a simple studio. Just because, again, people are asking me about my setup. It's like, well, I might as well just film it. Show everybody what I've got. It's not a hard thing to set up at home. Ideally, would like to create part of our basement into a studio that's a little bit more soundproof, because it was the biggest thing, because both me and my husband are working from home, and he's in the next room and has a lot of conference calls, and you can hear those. So I've got some door treatment going on, because what happens is the sound gets out, it bounces around our foyer, which is kind of a multi-level foyer. So there's a lot of noise that moves that way. But so I've had to limit the times and days that I can, if I have to record vocals, if I'm not doing something MIDI. But anyone can set this up. You don't need a whole huge startup cost. You don't need a state-of-the-art studio. Just start doing things at home, even just vocals, if you're not a producer.
Given what you know about gear today, because you've been acquiring gear for a while, and I'm sure you follow. I haven't asked anybody this before, but what do you think a reasonable startup budget is to put together a home studio, assuming you have a computer and your instruments?
If you already have a computer, then you're kind of ahead of the game, as long as it can be Logic compatible. So probably a couple $1,000s, if that. The sound treatment, I got all my acoustic foam from Amazon or when things are on sale.
Mm-hmm.
The microphone, now I admit for me, I won my microphone, I won my interface, and I won my monitors. So that helps. These monitors are like $800 monitors, but you don't have to get that much. They're good monitors. The interface, you can get a good one for like $200. The MIDI device, you don't have to have a full keyboard. Some people work on a little tiny MIDI device, no bigger than their computer keyboard. So you can easily do this for under $2,000, I would think.
And when you do larger scale production work or things that require larger scale production or higher end production, are you recording at a studio that is like a home studio or something that's just a dedicated business, sort of more full-blown studio like we imagine from days gone by?
A lot of songs I did with my buddy up in Baltimore. So he's got a full-fledged professional studio. So I did a lot of recording there when I was still working and could afford it before I set everything up. Now what I do is, I'll start some things here at the home studio, and I collaborate with a lot of people that produce, super production kind of thing, but they do it from their home studios as well. So if I need something that is super, this is not a word, I was gonna say super better produced and bigger production, then I have people I can go to that do this, for a living. The studio work, professional studio, it's definitely more costly. And when I'm making as many songs as I do for film and TV, I can't afford that. So what I do is I collaborate with people that are familiar with the sync world that can produce like high quality productions. Mm-hmm. And they also co-write with me too. So, we kind of split everything as far as that goes. And I do the vocals here in my studio.
Are they the guys located on Frederick Road in Maryland?
Who, the Song Builders? Uh-huh. They're in Catonsville. So, yeah, it might be Frederick Road there because there's a Frederick Road here too.
Yeah, I see one in Catonsville, and I'm sure it's the same.
Yeah, that's them.
They've got a nice website.
Yeah, they're good guys.
Do you follow, or do you still follow? I know you have Seth Godin.
I have. It's been a while, but yeah, I have. I haven't talked to him for a while, actually. He took my class, the workshop I had up there in Baltimore, I think.
For licensing?
Let me just make sure we're talking about the same person. Oh, no, never mind.
I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah, I know. There's a Seth that we were talking about, Song Builder Studio, and there's a Seth that I know from there, and for some reason I got the names confused. You're talking about the Seth Godin. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. No, he did not take my course for licensing.
I was going to be really impressed. I do have one of my first podcast interviews that I had done was with D. Grant Smith of Appetizer Radio. He has an indie radio show and a podcast for DIY musicians, and has been featured on this podcast as well. It'll be in the show notes, but he actually interviewed Seth Godin on his podcast.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I wasn't going to be like totally shocked, but I was pretty impressed.
Yeah. Nope, sorry to ruin that.
No, it's okay. That's okay. So to dovetail off that, because I wanted to talk about marketing and business, are there any marketing and or business lessons that you have learned that are worth sharing or that you share on a regular basis?
Yeah, marketing is hard.
I love that.
It's like my least favorite part. You want to make videos. Like, I hate the whole selling part of this. It's like, buy my stuff. I just don't. I do make videos. I have them on my Facebook, Licensing Songs Facebook page. I have them on my website. And I try to be at least as real as I can about it. I think being more real, being pretty descriptive and bullet pointed about what you're presenting and what you're selling. Facebook ads are important. Somehow I figured out a good lead ad, they call it, where people will sign up to your website or to your email list or something, and you give them something free in return, either free music, or I created like a checklist, a licensing checklist that they would get for free. And that's been working pretty well. So really kind of learning about how the Facebook marketing aspect works. Mm-hmm. Bree does a lot of sales funnels, like email sales funnels, and uses technologies like lead pages and things like that, which I have not gotten into yet. Like when I've been building my email list through my Facebook lead ads, but when I go to let these people know about my courses, there's only a certain amount of salesiness that I can get. So I'll mention what I'm doing and I'll say, here's my course, my info, and I'm going to have a free webinar. Once you're coming out, we'll talk about it, that kind of thing. There's a whole formal process involved in the sales marketing funnel aspect of it. And Bree's really good at that. So there's a lot of market research you can do to figure that out. If you're like me, I do the Facebook ads. I use Post Planner to pre-plan some posts for social media because it's kind of keeping up with that following. It can be hard and draining if we're spending all our time on social media. We want to be making music or doing whatever we're doing. So using tools like Post Planner kind of will help with that. Learning about how to create a good Facebook ad that you can run, every now and then to get people on your mailing list or to your website or to download free music. I think that's important. And it doesn't hurt, depending on what you're doing, even if you're a musician, just to be on your YouTube channel, to be like, make a video. Hey, this is who I am, what I do. I'm glad you're stopping by. Check this out. Whether it's music video or new music released. I haven't been real big on putting lyric videos up, but lyric video, YouTube's kind of the new way people listen to music. So if you don't have a formal video, kind of getting some lyric videos up there and all that, you can tag and put little things that pop up that will drive traffic to your website. Being very descriptive, using hashtags a lot, learning how to do all that to attract people to your business, your music, your website. It's constant and you have to bucket your time so you don't get distracted by it.
Yeah, I love it. And I feel for you too. Every podcast episode, I want to obviously market it and have it co-marketed. And yeah, it's a chore. Hence the constant plans to hire someone else to help with another task. So is the Facebook page that you mentioned, is that the Michelle Lockey Facebook page or is there another one?
I have a couple. So I've got the Michelle Lockey Facebook page and then I have Licensing Songs. You can either search Licensing Songs or Licensing Songs Academy. So Licensing Songs Academy, I just post stuff here and there, what's going on, any new placements I get or free things that are going on or newsworthy things. I have my little intro video there now that Facebook allows you to put a little intro video on your pages.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, just try to share some information and that kind of stuff on that page. One thing I was going to say that your podcast here is about the unstarving musician. So my courses are based on teach people how to write songs for licensing, but royalty streams and the money you make from film and TV are definitely a viable part of your music business. I don't know if you wanted to get into kind of that part of it, how you do make money with licensing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I promised you that I was, not that she made me promise her, folks, but I promised you I was going to let you know when we were getting close to the hour. But
oh, sure.
If you have some extra time, would love to talk about that. So feel free, please.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started out, it's like, oh, I got my $5 royalty check. Yay. But it's like your first placement, $5. The people that are making a full living, let's say the people that are making six figures, they're doing music every day. A lot of them are doing instrumentals. Instrumentals get a lot higher placement than vocal songs, but vocal songs pay more. And there are two ways you can make money.
I'm sorry, can you back up? You said instrumental songs get higher placement, but vocal songs pay more?
Yeah. If you get a vocal placement, and especially if it's over a minute, you get more royalties in the back end. And a lot of times the sync fee may be a little higher. Now, sometimes the sync and all that and the sync fee is the upfront fee they pay to take that recording and synchronize it to film and TV.
Okay.
Now, sometimes you get a sync fee negotiated, and then by the time they edit the show and all this, it's like a 10-second instrumental from your song, right? They take the instrumental part of it and the vocal out for whatever reason, but you still get your upfront money and you get your back-end royalties. The back-end royalties are paid through the performance royalty organizations like BMI and ASCAP, and networks are required to file what they call Q sheets. And then the calculations are done based on the network it's on, the length it's used, whether it's what we call like a prominent placement, like opening scenes, montages, closing, kind of end credits get usually more. If it goes over a minute, I know that BMI is something they call like a super vocal placement or a super instrumental, so you get a little bonus on top of that, which is cool. The income streams kind of build up based on the number of pieces that you get licensed. And I tell everybody that wants to get into it, because a lot of people, they want to go right from taking their music and just pitching it without learning anything in between. A lot of times there are certain songs and lyric songs that are not suitable for film and TV. And so I try to teach people from the beginning. It's like, okay, this is kind of how you need to write for film and TV. This is what you need to be aware of. And then we learn the business side as well. Because if you start pitching your music around and you don't understand anything about the business side, about how splits are done, about the different kinds of contracts you can sign, you can either A, be burned or just taken by somebody who's not fraud is scammy kind of stuff. Or you can look unprofessional when you talk to somebody in the business, publisher or something like that, if you don't understand and have kind of your ducks in a row when it comes to presenting your music to these places. So I really try to wrangle in the urge to just pitch nilly-willy and kind of teach people, let's go through the process. Let's learn how to craft our music for film and TV and what it really means to do that. Let's learn what kind of quality productions that we need. Let's learn about the business side and then build your catalog. We call it themes. So home is a big theme. You'll see songs about like home and TV shows about home everywhere. You build a catalog based on these themes. You learn how to appropriately pitch your music. You start getting placements, and then your royalty stream starts to increase. And since I started, my royalties have gone up per quarter, 200, 2,000 times. It's like, you need to do the math again. And it will vary, but it's like quarterly you get these payments from your PRO. You get upfront sync money. There's even what we call royalty free. It's not performance royalty free, but it's more like non-broadcast. So businesses buy your music to use in their business to business videos for their employees, or they might have a YouTube channel that they do some advertisements on. They buy your music for. So you get like this upfront money for it. Mm-hmm. I've made quite a bit, probably in the last couple of years, probably been about 13,000 from that. So that's another big income stream. It's a business just like anything else, and it takes a lot of just time and effort and building. We call it the 5-year plan. Like it takes about 5 years to start seeing like a consistent income stream from this. Mm-hmm. But it's doable. It's just learning, making music, constantly pitching it, getting placements, and just seeing the money come in. And for me, I would call myself an unstarving musician, but I'm not quite where I want to be yet. So I'm still building my business, and I have 3 sources of income. So I do my music licensing. I do teach music now. I've started doing that in the last couple of years. I have about 10 students. And then my licensing courses. Many people talk about this whole multiple streams of income sources for musicians.
Right.
I do believe in that. And as long as you can focus and parse your time, because I also teach courses in how to focus your music business, then you can get it done and still have a life.
Yeah. I think that it's been a concept, the multi-stream facet of music has been with us for a long time. You're going to get a kick out of this, but the irony of us talking about the potential for it is coming off of the heels of another podcast conversation I had with Robert Berry, who's in the San Francisco Bay Area, and he's been professionally active longer, but he's played with Carl Palmer, Sammy Hagar, Greg Kihn, all kinds of people, and his accomplishments are pretty large. But I brought up the new business model that I hear so much about, which I frankly believe in and see a future in. And we talked for a little bit about, he owns a recording studio. He only does, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 clients, which is fantastic. And then he's currently touring with Greg Kihn. But he was talking about royalties over the years. So he mentioned a film that he'd worked on, and he was just trying to give some perspective on what's happened to a lot of artists. And maybe they've made a shift or maybe they haven't. But he said, what used to be $600 royalty check is now a $60 royalty check. Just crazy.
It's a race to the bottom. And we as artists can kind of help that. There's a new model that's been around. It's like blanket licensing or direct licensing, where the publishers are making deals with the production companies. There's like one flat fee, and then the writers don't get anything. And there's a few networks that don't pay royalties like at all. And so these blanket direct licensing deals, it's like if you find somebody that's doing that, be very hesitant to sign music to those places. Now, some places will pay you on a blanket deal, but everything is going down. But it's still possible to do this. It's more of a volume thing now, and signing the deals with the right places and trying to find places that might give you some upfront money or that focus on getting you sync fees, going for some bigger kind of ad placements, getting in contact with ad agencies and Because in the ad world, there's big budgets and large amounts of money that you can make there. And that's one of my goals, is to try to get those bigger ad placements now. It's like, I've got the other stuff covered, so let's go for something even bigger. Because you get one big Nike commercial or something like that, and you're probably looking at 6 figures. But it's high competition when it comes to that stuff. So that doesn't mean you can't go for it.
Well, it's very enlightening. So the course that the launch that you're working on now, I take it, is related to what we're talking about. Would you like to talk a little bit about what that's actually going to entail for students?
Sure. So it starts off as a 9-week program. I basically teach everything from how to write music for film and TV, learning about the production aspect of it, talking about instrumentals, and then we learn about the business side. So the types of contracts and deals, how to properly pitch your music and network, and to help build your catalog. So that's a 9-week section. And in that, I always have guest people that come and talk. So some of the guests, we're having music supervisors. I have a guy, he's written 2 books. They're called the Demystifying the Cue, Demystifying the Genre. So how to look at music cues, which are instrumentals. And reality TV has a ton of those instrumentals. And if you're somebody that can just rip off a guitar lick, then you can do this kind of thing. It's just like, done, here's the music. And reality shows, that can really add up. He's coming on to talk about that. I have the artists, Big Little Lions, which are friends of mine, that are going to talk about the artist's perspective on licensing. A producer from Nashville that I work with, his name is Spet Nashville, and he does courses in recording and production. So he's going to talk about production. I've got a publisher from Matchmaker Music coming on to talk about like the day in the life of a publisher. So in addition to my weekly sessions, we've got all these guests. And then it's kind of like a sort of a year-long program. So we've got the 9-week core material. Then we come back in January and we do 90 days to focus your music business. So we talk about like our whys and our mission statements. We do task analysis because everybody's so busy, but there's plenty of stuff you can eliminate so you can make room for writing. Even if you have a full-time job, there's ways to get that done. And then I talk also about thinking like a professional, like turning professional. So we do that. And then I have a summer Q&A series. So it's kind of like a year-long program. The core of it, again, is the first 9 weeks. And then we have the Facebook group that accompanies that. And there's probably about 100 people in that right now. But the people that are taking, I've got about 30 students that are taking this round of courses.
Okay. If people want to find out about future courses, where's the best place for them to go?
They can go to licensingsongsacademy.com.
Okay.
And they can sign up. There's a free checklist, 10 Steps to Sync Success. If they sign up for that, that'll put them on my list. So I can let them know what's going on. Because what I do is, so we've got the main course, right? But then we do another launch in January that I have a self-paced class that people can take. And then they can also take the 90 days to focus your business. Like if people want to get on board with that sooner rather than wait for the next year's launch. But if they sign up for the checklist, then they'll at least be on the list so they know when the next round is coming up. People can catch up for this one. You'll miss a couple weeks and I record everything and post it. So it's not like all is lost kind of thing. If somebody really wants to join this session, once you hear this, then they can email me too. And I can either give you my email here, or if you have listeners you want to send my email, that's fine, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, actually, that's a great idea. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for spending time with me. I know this is a topic that people are going to be really interested in hearing about. It is very fascinating, and I like your music. I can't wait to check out some more. I made some notes of where you are online, but do you have some places that you want to recommend people look for you on the social web or wherever?
Yep, my main website is michellelockey.com. There's links through that to like the Licensing Songs Academy, which is also licensingsongsacademy.com. And then on Twitter, I'm Shell Sings Music.
As in seashell?
As in the seashell, so SHELL Sings Music. On Instagram, I'm Michelle Lockey Music, and the same with Facebook. Search me there. You can find my pages there.
Sure. And would you do my listeners a big favor and spell your first and last name?
Yes. So Michelle, Michelle, and then Lockey, Lockey.
And I see you're in a lot of other places that I'll likely put in the show notes. It has been a pleasure. I hope
Yeah, it
that
was
we
great.
are going to talk again and do this again. It was fun and
Yeah.
very informative, and we scraped the surface at best.
Yeah, I know. There's like a lot. Yeah. And people, we didn't get to mention like a lot of my placements and stuff, which is fine. You can check that out on the website. So it's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Thank you again, Michelle. It was really great talking to you.
Yes, it was. Thank you very much for having me on.
Awesome. We'll talk to you again soon. Hey, this is Ravanzo. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play Music. If you liked this podcast, please leave a review. This episode was sponsored by the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs, How to Get Booked and Paid What You're Worth Over and Over Again, available on Amazon and in audio format as the Unstarving Musician's Guide podcast. You can also learn more about the book and companion podcast at unstarvingmusician.com/book. Are you a gigging musician, recording artist, songwriter, or touring professional, perhaps struggling to get your music out to the world? Struggling to get the gigs you want? Pop over to unstarvingmusician.com and sign up for my email list. I'll send you occasional emails about upcoming episodes, expert tips and advice, music, musician resources, and anything else I come across that might make your journey better and brighter. The Unstarving Musicians podcast is edited by Juan Perez. Are you a podcaster? Would you like 20% off on editing of your first 4 episodes? Visit the show notes for this episode for a link to Juan's freelance profile or unstarvingmusician.com/resources and mention you heard about this offer through the Unstarving Musicians podcast. With much gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell.